Are you on the
I'm
right?
sitting on the floor now.
Are you on the right
Wi-Fi?
channel? Yeah.
Right channel.
Question mark.
Why do you do
Facebook
that to me
channel.
after I already hit live, Vicky?
Well, hold on a second. I'll tell you.
I'm second guessing.
You're on the right channel. Oh, I put my phone in between.
How do you do the teeth?
I don't
Why don't you
see it.
show everybody in the camera and see if they can do anything?
It's like I just got done eating, so, you know.
Are we on the right page?
Yeah, it must have been
Okay.
Hebrews 10:25 that I was thinking.
Because I was just reading, I was like stopped at verse 13. I was like, well, so I don't know about that. But
This is gonna be so much fun.
I'm excited.
All right. I can't see how many people.
Oh, man. Hi, friends.
There's a couple.
Hello, friends. I kind of made like a little outline.
Yeah, it was 23 through 25 that I was thinking.
Okay.
Chapter
I meant
10,
I meant to
where I
talk to
got
you about
5,
it.
I don't know.
You were asleep.
Hebrews 10. Now I forgot the verses.
She came over Saturday for us to like go over this and kind of like outline what we wanted to talk about. And then she wrote it down for me. It's like she wrote these 3 verses. She's like, oh, these would be good, these would be good. And I'm looking at them.
I'm getting an average
She's
of
like,
2
you
hours
need
of
to do
sleep a
this
night.
one.
And that one don't exist.
No, she's like, this is the one you need to read first. And then I couldn't
It's
find it.
chapter 10.
It's
I only got you halfway there since it's like.
What's that say?
I can't read it from here.
Oh,
Here,
do
let me borrow
I
your
can
glasses.
actually. Here, I will be
see
your
this.
questionnaire person.
We usually don't do questions.
Yep, no, still can't
Oh, you
read
don't?
it. There's really not much change.
Okay. All right, let me do our welcome. Good evening, everyone.
Tara says hi.
Hello, Tara. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Bible study. I'm Vicki. Everyone remembers Mercedes. Soon her hair will be a different color. It's natural right now. It's not going to stay that way very long.
Tiny bit of green left.
Not
For the
much
next haircut.
longer, not for- you know, she'll have to be something bright.
Yellow.
Tonight,
How's your shoes?
tonight we are at the lovely Allen's house, and this is Anna Allen, our guest, along with Miss Ashley Shipley.
I'm just here for emotional support.
She's here in case anybody decides to cry.
Yes.
Oh, I don't want to make people cry.
But I want to thank you for having us tonight for the Bible study. Actually, I've had about 5 or 6 women step up now, and I actually have all the way to the 3rd week of July scheduled for studies. So, but thank you for allowing us. They're a little apartment. It's not a little apartment. It's actually a very nice size apartment. I found a spare room.
Ashley, you're gonna have to share the spare room with Vicki.
Okay.
Your room.
I can cuddle with her.
Their house is so cute. I told Mercedes, I said, it must be really nice to, really nice to not have to pick up after a whole bunch of people all the time. But then, you know, we did come in, and I'll have to say that I was very impressed. Mrs. Allen's husband was in the kitchen.
He loves cooking, and I'm very grateful for that. He cleans.
He looks good. He makes good looking sandwiches.
Yeah, I found that recipe on Pinterest. I find the recipes, he makes them. So that's kind of how we merge in the kitchen. I like to bake, but he's the better cook. So, yeah. But he does laundry. He'll do, you know, the kitchen. He'll do dishes. I'm
Such a
very
good
lucky.
husband.
I trained him.
Well, you've had him for like, what, 10 years?
10 years tomorrow. We've been together 10 years tomorrow.
Wow.
They
That's
started
dating.
dating when they were like 15 and 16?
15 and 16. So tomorrow is 10 years together.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. See, I've had time to train him, so it's in the formative years. Thanks.
Happy anniversary. That's just fabulous.
They're cute.
Well, he had some Shipley training too, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was there for how many years? 3 or 4 years?
Off and on, I think it was 3 years to
Yeah.
total.
Yeah.
Something
That's what I
like
was
that.
thinking. That's
So
what I
we're
was
adopted into the Shipley family.
Yes, it happens. Their family's quite large. We were there last Thursday night, we had Bible study with Pastor Jeff, and the house was very quiet during Bible study.
And then we had dinner.
Then we had dinner, and it was like, wow, where did everybody come from? I mean, there was just people.
They
Lots of
were being
people.
respectful, quiet little mice.
Were they actually in the house when we were doing Bible study? What?
They're adults now. They can control themselves.
Well,
All the boys
again,
and their
training them when
friends.
they were young, we got beaten with a shoe. If,
But,
They had to run around a cinder blocks.
I'll have to say
yeah, exactly.
that the training sometimes is shown. I know one little Shipley, bless his little heart, he just gets so eager and excited about stuff he can't sit down or keep his mouth shut. I bet nobody knows who I'm talking
Nope.
about.
No, not at all.
See?
Nope.
See? Well, anyways, I want to thank y'all again for getting with us tonight and doing this study. Anna, what verse have you chosen for us to study tonight?
Galatians 6, 1 and 2.
Mercedes, will you read the scripture of Galatians 6, 1 and 2, please?
Brothers, if someone is caught in any wrongdoing, you who are spiritual should restore such a person with a gentle spirit, watching out for yourselves so you also won't be tempted. Carry one another's burdens. In this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ.
So why did you pick this verse?
So, whenever you first ask me, come up with a verse or like something that you really enjoy or that's like on your heart. And I'm like, accountability has always been something, especially within these last several years, something that's been very important in my Christian walk and also in Ashley and I's friendship. We met 7 years ago, 7 years ago.
Somewhere about that time.
And we ended up being in an accountability group. I came to Witten for the first time. Donovan started going there, but I didn't want to be the girlfriend who, just came to church like with him and like
The
followed
drummer's
around.
girlfriend.
Yeah, I just didn't want to be that girl. And then so Donovan ended up leaving his Bible in the college room when we were in college. And so I was like, oh, well, I'll go grab it. And Rachel Shipley at the time and Ashley were in there.
Rachel Matusik.
Rachel Matusik at the time. Ended up sitting in there, and I came in, they were like, oh, hey. And I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm just, didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just in here, getting this Bible. And then they both look at each other and was like, do you want to be in an accountability group? And I'm like, okay.
Unbeknownst to Anna, she had
Yeah.
walked in on us sitting there. We're like, what young women are in our church that we would want to, because we were talking about starting it, and we were in the middle of naming every single person who was in our age group that was a single female that we could think of. And Anna wasn't even on that list because she was only coming every once in a while and she wasn't really that committed. And she just happened to walk in as we were wrapping up the list, and we just looked at each other and we're like, didn't even think of Anna.
And they're like, hey, you want to join?
Yeah.
And so ever since then, for about 6 or 7 years, I've been in an accountability group almost that entire time. And I will tell you that being held accountable, especially in your Christian walk, is very important because it really keeps you from doing a lot of stupid crap. And there have been times where I didn't do something specifically because I knew that I would have to tell my group about it. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to get in trouble by my group. I don't want to do that. But the reason I picked that verse is because accountability has been an important aspect of my life, and not only in my life but in my Christian walk as well. Because when you read it, it says, brothers, if someone is caught in any wrongdoing, you who are spiritual should restore such a person with a gentle spirit, watching out for yourselves so that you also might not be tempted. And so it says with a gentle spirit. Sometimes we need to be gentle, with each other, but other times it's like, okay, if you're coming in here every single week for the past year with the same problem, I'm not going to be so gentle anymore. It's like, do you want accountability for that anymore, or do you just, what do you want? But I do think it's important to do it with a gentle spirit because nobody's perfect, and not everybody needs to be addressed in the way of like a gentle way. Some people need to be addressed with a hammer, or slap with that the head or something.
Or a
what I mean?
flip flop.
Or flip flop like a Latino. It's just not gonna around. You did that.
She threw it.
See, But see, it might have worked for
You
you.
threw a flip flop at her.
I threw it back. I don't
That
think
is
it really worked that
ministerial
well.
abuse, ma'am.
It was on a mission trip.
She threw it back. She threw it back.
It was on a mission trip, and I was her mom until Tara got there.
So you're saying it's maternal abuse?
Yes.
That's fine.
So either
Is
way,
that
you need to
any
be
better?
reported.
Yes.
It's not
discipline.
bad.
It's discipline.
Discipline. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm the one that gets the hammer dropped on me a lot.
But see, sometimes
Maybe you
you
need
just
new
gotta
friends.
have it like that.
Yeah. Agreed. And you talk about being how you started in accountability. I myself started in accountability many years ago too, and I went into a group that wasn't expecting me, and it ended up being the best thing that I did in my life.
Especially when you have a group of, like with us just speaking with women, when you have a group of women that you can go to of all different ages and still have something in common, like, to me that's amazing, because it's like, on paper, Ashley and I should not be best friends. We should not be best friends. Exactly.
You really shouldn't.
So like we're complete, like Ashley loves, she's what I call my nerd, and like she's okay with that because we've been friends for so long, but her and Donovan will talk about nerd stuff all the time. And I'm just like, I check out, I'm like, okay, like y'all can be nerdy over there somewhere, that's fine. But it's like, on paper, Ashley and I should not be friends because we are so opposite with our interests, but the one interest that is most important is that we're believers. And it's hard going through this world without having that companionship with other believers. And it's just like, I told Donovan, I said, when we were in quarantine and we couldn't go to church, I said, that's where all of our friends are. We don't have any friends anywhere else besides like our families and stuff. It's like, we don't have any friends outside of church. And so I honestly, like, I'm a pretty happy person. I could feel myself like sinking into like a slight depression. And when I got to hug, like I finally hugged Ashley, Michelle Romo like stuck her hands out. And she's like, friends. And I was like, are you hugging people? And she's like, yes. I was like, oh my gosh. And like we embraced each other. And then Rachel Shipley and I hugged. And I was like, that just made me so happy. And to know that I don't have to go through this world without having friends like that who actually genuinely care, not even just about like me as a person, but my spirit and my spiritual walk as well. And that's the thing about accountability that is so important, is that they kind of keep you in line with what you need to do.
Kind of playing off like the verse that we were trying to figure out what I was trying to.
Oh yeah.
Hebrews 10, it's Hebrews 10 and it's verse 25 and 26. It says to make sure that you don't forsake gathering together, even as you see the day drawing near. And in our accountability group, just to say again how our accountability group is really weird and none of us should really be friends. Our group also has Sarah Workman in it, so. Anna and I, on paper, we shouldn't be friends, and then you throw Sarah Workman in there, and it just really looks like a three-ring circus at that point.
We talked about going somewhere for a meeting one time, and I was like, I bet people would just like gawk, like, what are these, like, those weird
Yes,
people,
you
like,
should
just
see-
all of us
Oh, no.
together.
You should see when me and Vicky go out.
Yeah,
somewhere.
people are like, oh my god.
We would go to Starbucks and meet just to talk about women's ministry stuff.
Get some weird.
You got the gray-haired lady with the green-haired lady
With the piercings and the
with the
Tattoos.
piercings, and here I am. I just came from work, and I'm, But who cares?
Right. But that was one of the things Sarah, she pointed out like this was a couple of meetings ago. She had said something when we finally got back together, and it made me think of this verse when Anna and I were studying. She was like, I got for the first time in a big way during this whole coronavirus thing. She's like, this entire world, people are becoming more and more polarized and more self-centered and more about the individual. And she said the church is the last vestige of true community and family that this world has. And it was kind of, when we read Galatians 10, it was kind of like Hebrews 10. Thank you. I was reading her notes here when we were reading
Get out of my notebook.
when we were reading, when I read that in Hebrews 10, it was like, this is important, and it's even more important the more and more, the closer and closer the day draws near, and I was like, whoa.
Because
So,
we will only have each other.
right, and it just kind of put it in this, there was a whole reason why God pushed, guys, whenever you gather together, you need to not forsake it. You need to, make this gathering together important and the holding each other accountable important, because it's going to be really important when the day comes. And it's coming, and that was one of the things that Sarah was pointing out. She's like, I got this sense of how important it was when we were all sequestered and we were kept separated, and that yearning that you felt for it. And she's like, the rest of the world, they don't get to have that type of relationship with other like-minded, well, it's not even like-minded people. You're people that are all sorts of different types of people. And there's still that yearning to be together that the world right now doesn't have. It's completely polarizing. It's completely friend turning against friend and brother against brother right now, just because of silly, well, in some cases not silly, political differences and other things.
I never realized how much I actually needed people until that happened.
I
And
know.
went,
I'm like a little antisocial, like butterfly, because I love people and I like doing things, but there are just sometimes I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to be by myself. But like I said, not like, and I was just, not to say anything bad about the people I work with, but they're not like you guys. They're not my church family. They're not my close friends. And so I was only coming in contact with them, and then sometimes our families. And I just felt so just like empty and just sad. I'm like, I just want to go do something with my friends.
So that's one of those.
my friend.
I know.
But that was one of those things that that kind of tells me that accountability and being together, and especially in these small types of groups, it's important for your own correction, but also for edification, growth, and family and things like that. It's not just for correction, it's for a lot more than just that. So when people are trying to think, well, do I really want to go into an accountability group and get beaten up over the head? God didn't intend accountability, which accountability groups are just our way.
They're not biblical.
They're not biblical. They're our way of interpreting it and implementing what God said, what God set forth with accountability. But it's not just for correction. So you're missing out on a lot when you don't go to accountability group, not just for the correction, but also the camaraderie, the sense of community, the growth that you'll experience, and the good things as well. I mean, because that's one of the things that, Anna and I, growing together, we've celebrated with each other in the good times, and we've corrected each other when we've been doing wrong. And so it's both sides of the coin. It's not just you're going to get beaten over the head by people with flip-flops.
Well, in verse 2 it says, carry one another's burdens, and this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. And so there have been some, and like without sharing anything like confidential, there have been some really like dark times, and I think I've been in like 4 groups like out of the whole time that I've been doing accountability groups, and there have been some like hard stuff that people deal with, but you're there to carry that for them. Okay, look, you might not see the end of this, you might not see why God has you in this situation, and like I said, without sharing anything like confidential, we actually had a praise these last couple of weeks of something that's been happening to a person for over 3 years. And
I
it's
started
finally,
crying last week, guys.
yeah, it's finally coming into fruition. It's like, do you remember when you first came into this group about 2-3 years ago, and where you were at that point, and now you're in this completely different spot, and you see what God has done and how you've grown in that.
Yeah, I remember 3 years ago, she was like, why is God doing this to me? I'm finally being obedient, and he's punishing me for it. And then literally she said a complete 180 last week, and I was just like, everything that we've been praying for, she literally just like right in that moment, I was just like, it was one of those really great things to watch. Kind of watching the growth of a Christian, your fellow sister, is just as good as watching a baby Christian being born. It's
Right.
one of
It's
those
like,
really awesome
so
things.
when they're in the pits, you're there for them. When they're in their highs, you're there for them. You're there for your friends. And I don't know. Like I said at the beginning, accountability has changed my life. But like we were talking Saturday, you get out what you put in. So if you're not going to be open and honest, like you don't have to be like 100% honest about like what you did like every single thing of the day, like How I Met Your Mother when Lily and Marshall talked about what they ate. Like, you don't have to be like that. It's like, no, just hit like the main points. But it's like, okay, so do you have a problem? It's like, okay, Michelle Romo ended up saying this in our small group at the women's retreat, and it stuck with me. She's like, you can choose to be, honest, or you can choose to be like 100% honest. Like, okay, well, someone ended up cutting me off today on the road, and I got mad. Okay, that's being honest. Being 100% honest is I got angry, I started cursing, I flipped him the bird, like I did whatever. It's like you can choose to be however honest, but you're only going to get out exactly what you put in. And so if you're not being, 100% transparent, and it does take time to build that relationship, to be able to be vulnerable, especially with a group of women that you're not necessarily like familiar with. It is hard.
Well, and there might be somebody who's going through something that you've gone through, and so you're able to kind of step up and walk beside them and help them through it because you've been there, done that.
Well, and I think that's why with our groups, specifically at our church, I like that we have different age groups like intertwined with that, because you, like, the young newlywed is getting advice from a woman who's been married like 30 years, and then you have this other person's like, I've dealt exactly with what you're dealing with. Let me go ahead and kind of tell you what worked for me.
Yeah, that's what's nice about our group, is you do have that
Wide range of experience.
wider range.
I'm the old woman.
You're the old one.
Our old woman is Jenny Sneed.
Sweet.
I know.
Well,
She's wonderful.
if you look at the verse before this, though,
Gentleness is a fruit of the Spirit.
Yes.
you also have to keep in mind that we must not become conceited, provoking one another, envying one another. That's another thing that you don't have to worry about when you're dealing with your sisters in Christ, or you shouldn't be dealing with when you come to dealing with your sisters in Christ, or even your brothers in Christ, because sometimes they can get their little feelings hurt too, and want to throw a shoe at them also. Sometimes it might even be your husband.
Why are you looking at me?
I'm just giving you advice.
Those two are
I'm
married.
giving you advice
Oh,
actually
okay.
for future
Future
reference.
Oh, okay.
You're welcome, Pastor. Future advice, and it's okay, but make sure it's not a high heel shoe.
I don't know.
You don't want to damage. You just
Glenn
want to
will know
get the
what
point
I'm talking
across.
Anyways, so and then it flows into the wrongdoing. But you know what? Go ahead. No, you're on something. Go ahead.
Well, verse 3, for if anyone considers himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. So the last verse,
What did you say again? I didn't get
Verse
all there.
3. For if anyone considers himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. It ties back into 25.
But it's all part of being honest. Even when being honest is hard to do, because that
Actually, none of that to do.
it's not exactly what the person wants to hear.
Yeah.
I love you, but and Ashley always goes, well, like when she says, well, she gets like a whole octave higher. That's when you know she's about to lay
I'm about to lay down the
truth.
hammer.
She's just like, well,
I'm trying to be gentle, but I'm just like, I'm about to hit you with a hammer, but I'm going to try and put a towel over it so it
it's gonna be
doesn't matter.
nice. Yeah.
Well, and I'll be honest with y'all. There's one woman in our church that I can honestly say has, through everything that I've been through with my marriage, with kids, she's understood it. She has walked right along beside me through some pretty difficult times, and that is Rebecca Dillon. She has been with me on several nights. We've gone on car rides, and because and that was in the car, when I was telling you earlier, that's when I found out I had to get glasses. We would go looking for a house for them to rent years ago, and that's when we did. And I want to tell y'all, she ministered me every single time, and I don't think she looked at it that way, but it was just now that I can look back at it, I'm going, "What, you saved my, I mean, she saved my life emotionally." You know what I mean? But you'll get,
Well, we've been in those situations.
it's
Yeah.
and it's a thing where you sit back and you go,
Thank God for that person.
yeah,
And it's like, God literally put this person in my life.
at this time for this reason.
So I had an analogy. I was like, God is the sculptor. You know, He's the potter, we're the clay, everything else. And so God puts people in your life, good or bad, and it could be the boss that you hate. It
just
could
add
be
this to 'em.
it could be your best friend, it could be an ex-boyfriend, it could be an ex-husband, whatever. But God uses all these people as tools. Some people He may use as a scalpel. Some people He uses as a hammer to take big chunks out of your life, and you're just like, why did you do that? That hurt. But
Did we not
and
just
then there are
have
some people
wallpaper?
who they just give you the front finishing touches. They brush you up and they clean off the rough edges and
Polish.
they polish you. So that's kind of one of those things of, you know, Anna, she's been at times been a hammer, she's been a chisel, she's been a polish, she's been, stop it, don't touch me.
Ashley doesn't like to be touched when she's sad, so I just go
Yeah,
in there.
she wants to comfort me and I'm like, don't touch me. But some, you know, every person that God puts in your life is God is using to shape you. And there are some people that you're just like, thank God that He sent me this person. And you see the effect that person has on your growth spiritually and what they have used, how God has used them to speak to you, whether they be a positive or a negative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because during that point in time in my life, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to put it. I didn't know, and I would just get so frustrated, and I would be so angry. And it would be like she'd call me and say, "Hey, you want to go looking for houses with me?" And I was like, "Yeah,
Sure, get me out of here.
yeah." How'd you know I needed to get out of here tonight? You know, and we'd get in the car. Is she?
She is watching. Hi, Rebecca.
We're talking about you.
We would get in the car and I would just like word vomit and cry sometimes. And then by the end of the night, and we never found a house. Out of all that time, we never found a house. Her sister found a house for them to move into. But anyways, we still had fun doing it.
It was so productive.
Yeah.
It was. It was. So, you know, and I will have to say that she was that person that I was going in the wrong direction, but she gently restored me and steered me into the right direction. So
One thing though, if a fellow believer comes to you and they're struggling with something, a sin in particular, you got to make sure that you too are not caught in that same sin in the correcting of that person, because it's
Mercedes.
John 8, the adulterous woman says, the one with no sin casts the first stone.
Oh, and then also, I had this written down. I'm
Yeah.
glad you said it.
Mind readers.
Matthew 7:1-6, and this is the typical, like the stereotypical verse that they say, like, don't judge me. You're not supposed to judge me. And then I'll end up
1-6.
reading it's Matthew 7:1-6, and I'll end up reading John Piper. He's a pastor, if y'all haven't heard of him. But he has like a little saying about it, and I'm like, it's just perfect. So I'll go ahead and read Matthew 7:1-6. Do not judge so that you won't be judged. From the judgment you use, you will be judged, and to the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but don't notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, and look, there's a log in your eye? Hypocrite. First take the log out of your eye, and then you will clearly take a speck out of your brother's eye. Don't give what is holy to dogs, or toss your pearls before pigs, or they will trample them with their feet, turn and tear you to pieces. Could you imagine Jesus calling, like you personally, hypocrite? Could you imagine, like because this is Jesus speaking, and for him to say hypocrite, like, ooh, that cuts deep. But so John Piper, what he has to say about it, he says, it's not wrong to lovingly help our brother remove a harmful speck from his eye. It is wrong to self-righteously point out a speck in your brother's eye when we ignore, as no big deal, the ridiculous log protruding from her own. And so, like she said, you know, it's okay to help somebody else out with that, but you can't scold them for something that you do the exact same thing.
Make sure your conscience is
Hypocrite.
clear.
Exactly. And so that's always one thing I would recommend before any type of like accountability meeting is evaluate yourself, because there are sometimes it's not like a counseling group. It's not, you know, just like ladies and lattes. It's not just that, you know, it's a time to hang
Lattes
out.
would be great.
Yeah, see, we could add it, but it's not just that. But to really evaluate yourself and be like, okay. And there have been times I'm like, I know exactly what you're going through because I'm going through it right now. And I just want to let you know you are not alone in this. Like, I'm struggling with that same thing right now. What can we do to fix it? Instead of just be like, oh yeah, you need to work on that, girl. You suck. Like, yeah. You can't do that.
Did you see her face?
You suck.
Do you see why I like being her friend? She makes me laugh.
I'm funny.
She's
Tell
hilarious.
Donovan.
She's
Say
hilarious.
that to Donovan. He says I'm
Well,
not hilarious.
Donovan thinks I'm not funny too, so you know.
No, he's like, you're not hilarious. I said, I'm hilarious.
I am a delight
People
and I'm
I
funny.
need that on camera. I really do. I need that. Her look. I need that.
You should wait until she gets the Medea out.
Oh yes. Oh yes, man. I get really snippy. One thing, I do have a couple of, as Ashley and I were going over this on Saturday, when you were talking about like, you know, chiseling, you have people in your life, you know, that kind of shape you into who you are. Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And I find that very true. And for one of our accountability groups, that was actually like our motto, or like the verse that we used for like the motto for that. And so
That was our Bible verse. Oh
no.
Oh
that's my study Bible too. That was our Bible verse on a mission trip one year. That was our team verse.
It was one of the verses that me and little Jeff used when we did our Q&A
I know, I
on
saw
friendship.
that.
Oh yeah.
I saw that. That was a good one too. Y'all did a
I
good
haven't
job.
watched it. I don't go back and watch my
Oh,
stuff.
you don't watch your stuff?
It's weird. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
It's like when you
I don't like
post your
listening to myself talk.
Oh yeah.
That reminds me, I got something I need you to do, so remind me.
Okay, I'll forget. Humility is in this too. Being humble. Having a
That
humble
is
spirit.
something that, you know, Anna knows a little bit of this, and I won't go too crazy into it, but one of the lessons that I had to learn doing this accountability group, because, you know, I've been in one same amount of time, you know, she and I started together. One of the really hard lessons that I had to learn in an accountability group was, you know, talking about being the tool that God uses to shape people. If somebody rejects that shaping, that is not your responsibility, and you cannot, it's one of those things, you cannot take it personal when somebody refuses correction.
And that's what
You
you
cannot
had
do
to
that.
come to learn. Yeah.
Oh
It's
my
hard.
gosh, because, you know, there was one time
And don't feel like a failure.
I do.
That was
when
something she struggled
I
with.
struggled with that. I still, like, there are pangs of that, because I'm a fixer.
Where's
and
my flip flop when I need it?
I'm not struggling with it right now.
Okay.
But we had one friend who she was doing, when we went with her with Bible verses, and I took it so personally, like it was a huge failure on my part when she chose to still go on a different path. And for years, I was like, was I too hard? Was I not hard enough? And it was one of those, that's not my responsibility. Our responsibility is to be willing tools and to be obedient to God. After that, our responsibility in the situation is over.
Well, and you think they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting God.
Did you start out gentle?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I started out gentle. Oh, it started out.
It was over a long period of time.
It was over years. It was over a very long period of
I
time.
have been gentle. There are times like I can look
I
at
asked
other
her
people
if
and
she was gentle. I can see being gentle.
Okay,
Oh,
I thought you meant
no.
no. With
No,
Ashley,
ma'am.
I'm not so much anymore. I'm
Oh
like,
no.
so you know when this happens, do you realize you do that?
Oh
and
no.
she's like
Sunday, she just like, bam, like suplexed me with something. I'm like, No, I don't do that. What?
I was like, so don't you notice that whenever this happens, you do this? Just called it, like we were in the middle of a conversation with somebody else and then I pointed it out because
Yeah.
I had thought about it.
In the middle of my conversation, she just called me out. In the middle of my conversation, I'm just like,
But I
No.
only do that because Ashley and I have been friends so long. I know that I can just look at her, and even with Donovan, like I have certain relationships with people. I can just look at them and be like, okay, I love you.
you're a brat.
You're being a brat. And that's kind of like where Ashley and I are. But other people, I'm not just going to say that to. But it's like, I mean, have you considered all of, your feelings? Are they really, your feelings aren't always true. I'm
You
always like
cannot
that.
rely on feelings.
No, but like with Ashley, it's like I'm just like, why are you?
You're
Your
an
feelings.
idiot.
I'm like, does it just because someone says something does that mean it's true? Well, no. Okay, then stop. Just stop.
Stop it.
Stop. Just stop. But yeah, I think that takes a while to develop a relationship like that. So
Yeah.
that's
But yeah, you
use
can't
your
take
own
it personal.
discretion. Yeah, don't take
Like
it
what
personally.
Mercedes said, humility. That is, going how that tied into what she was saying, is humility, because that was a pride issue with me. Because I was pretending that I had the power to change the direction of people's life, and I knew what God's will was for their life, and I knew what they were doing was wrong, and so I was going to make them change, and that is not
Honey, no, honey.
Well, and it's not. It's
She's like, I know.
No, I know, and everybody knows it. Everybody, you may be sitting there,
Oh, Lisa, listen.
but you may be sitting there like, no, I know that, but all of us do that. Everybody does that.
You think
When
you
you-
know
when
what's
you-
best for the
You think
people
what
you
you know,
love.
you know what? Yeah, because you love them. It's out of love.
Right.
It's out of love.
I understand.
It's out of love. And so then what I have to remember,
Honey.
I have to remember though, I need to take a step back and just go like, you know what?
That's what you
Let
want
her
to do.
do
Dude, you
We're-
know how many times I've done that?
You are a mother and a grandmother. I absolutely know.
Where is it that it says you go in private to correct that person,
Oh,
and
is that
then
in
you
James?
bring two more? That's
Um,
what I thought. I thought it was in James.
I'm
but
a-
then
anybody watching, do you know what verse that is?
I was.
I don't know
looking
why
in
I'm looking down
James,
there when
and
y'all
I
are.
couldn't.
Anybody? Can you hear me?
I thought it was in James, but then
I want to say it
couldn't
was.
find it.
No, I want to say
Is
that.
there anybody in there? That's
I'm trying to like Google it. Real
Right. I was gonna do that, and then I remembered my phone's over there, being busy.
You can't Google.
Mom says Matthew.
Oh shoot, we were way off.
Thanks,
The
Miss
opposite
Glenn.
end.
It's like,
At the opposite end of the.
Matthew.
The Old Testament.
Matthew. Oh, she says I think now.
Oh, okay.
Thanks,
I
Mom.
can't find it on Google, but anyway.
Hey, Mom, do you have a
that's
reference to
scripture.
that?
It's like-
Because I know you're probably watching with an iPad and a phone right now.
Both?
Yes. She'll have both of them
Matthew
on her.
18:16.
That.
Ah.
Thank you, Miss Gwen.
18:16. Okay.
Miss Gwen, we gotta get your Wow Moment put on YouTube.
It is on YouTube.
Matthew 18:16.
Is that? I didn't see it.
Yes, Matthew 18:16.
No. Is that it? Yeah, 15.
Okay.
Yeah. If your brother sins against you, go and rebuke him in private. If he listens to you, you have won your brother. But if he won't listen, take one or two more with you, so that by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, every fact may be established. If he pays no attention to them, tell the church. But if he doesn't pay attention to the church, let him be like an unbeliever and a tax collector to you.
So kind of
So-
like if somebody knocks at your door and there's a bunch of people from church out there, you've done something really bad.
Oh.
So
Well,
you do
apparently,
what you can.
apparently you weren't listening the
when
first
you
2
can't
times.
do anymore. You just have to step away and let them come to their senses on their own. But when they come back, be there.
Oh, like the prodigal son example is
Yeah.
I have a friend who decided to make a decision very quickly and like without going into a lot of detail. It was a friend of ours, Donovan and mine, and he was just making this rash decision. It's like, what's the rush? Like, why are you, doing all this stuff? You really need to take time to decide, X, Y, Z. He ended up going against that, which is fine. Like, I'm not your parent. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but you asked our opinion, so we're going to tell you, exactly how we feel. And he stopped talking to us. And it's been almost 2 years now, just totally ghosted. Like, I've tried reaching out, everything, no contact. And Donovan and I were talking about it here like last few months. I said, you know, I'm not mad. I said, I feel rejected. Because, you know, just because he didn't like what we had to say, you know, it's like, we'll still love you, but we don't agree with this particular decision that you made. We'll still be here for you if you need help with anything. But the fact that, you know, he ghosted us, it's like, you know, that's fine. But I told Donovan, I said, if he comes back, I said, I don't even care about it. It's like, to me, it doesn't matter. But it's like the same thing. You
And
know,
it's-
you feel like you know what's best for your friends.
And it's super
your
hard
family?
when it's somebody that you're extremely close to and
Mhm.
you love dearly.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to
That you've
step away.
invested.
That was like our
especially if it's somebody
hard
you've
stop.
invested in.
Yeah. Well, and I asked my mom, I said, is this what you feel like with your kids? And you know that they're like, it's watching like a train accident happen, you know, it's like a train wreck coming. It's like, you know, it's going to be a train wreck, but you still have to let it happen anyway. She's like, yeah, it's one of the sucky parts of being a mom, because she's like, you can't do anything. You got to let them make their own mistakes. And it's like, you just got to let your hands off.
You have to, and especially when it comes to kids, you have to give them the advice that if they ask for it. I mean,
Yeah.
because especially after you have, because I have a stepdaughter that'll be 30 in January, and a stepson that's 27, and then Wesley's 20.
She 25?
No,
What year is she born?
I messed up that one.
Did you forget how old your kids
Brandon,
are?
no, my stepson will be.
How many kids she got?
My stepson will be 28. Brandon will be 28 because Amber will be 30. And then that makes Wesley, she will be 27 in February. She's 94.
Okay, so yeah, she's
Um,
born in 92.
And
20.
then there's William that's 20 and Miranda that's 18. And I'll be honest with you, you know, you all you can do once they're grown and out of the house, it's worse than them being toddlers. Because when they're
Timeout
toddlers, you
isn't a
can,
thing anymore.
when they're toddlers, you can smack their hand and then they won't do it anymore. Or they'll try to do it and then you go to smack their hand and they move their hand away. But when they're grown, it's like, don't do that. Why are you doing that? Why aren't you listening to me? This is what's going on in your head, you know? And then when they come to you and say, what do you think I ought to do?
Well, you shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Well, that's whenever you have to just sit down and it's like, it's really easy. It's really, with Wesley is my hard-headed child because she's so much like me. And we actually had a talk a couple weeks ago, and she just needed to hear truth. And I told her, I said, do you want to hear truth? And she said, surprisingly, yes. Because usually she don't want to hear any of that. So we spent 2 hours in my bedroom with the door shut, and she accepted it, and she listened to it. And as a parent, it's very, very, very hard to deliver truth sometimes to your kids, because it's easy to do it with somebody else's kids, but you know, you want, for your own children, you want life to be great and grand, but
That's not the reality.
life isn't great and grand.
Well, it's like my mom, she apologized because like for my childhood, it wasn't like 100% great. Like my dad was an alcoholic and it was an abusive marriage and everything like that. And she apologized to me just like a few months ago. I'm just so sorry that happened. I just feel like you have so much baggage. I said, Mom, what person doesn't have some form of baggage? I said, tell me one person. She's like, I can't. I said, okay, then like what you just said, just throw it off. Just like nothing. But with that, everyone has something, and you can't protect the people that you love from making the wrong decisions. You just kind of have to, it's like, you know, a kid, okay, that's hot, don't touch that. Okay, it's hot, don't touch that. It's like, okay, go ahead and touch it, it's hot, you'll learn. And sometimes we just have to burn ourselves in order to learn for ourselves. But with like speaking truth to somebody, it is difficult. And even though Ashley and I are friends and we've been close friends for a long time, it's still not always easy to speak truth. And even to Donovan, like I said, we've been together for 10 years tomorrow. Sometimes it is not easy speaking like 100%. It's like, you want me to be honest? You want me to tell you 100% truth? You want me to tell you 100% truth? You're not supposed to be doing that. You're not supposed to be doing that. And they're like, okay. It's hard. It's hard to hear truth because you're just like, well, I'm still mad, or I'm, still stuck in my ways, whatever.
Well, I have to be honest, I don't have any problems being truthful with Mercedes.
Well, not everyone's like you, though. Some people, they might not feel comfortable with a particular person, and so it's difficult for them to
It
feel
depends on
more
who it is for
vulnerable.
me. Depending on
Right.
who it is, I'll rip into him if I need to.
I think that,
But it really depends
this
on
is
who
true.
it is.
This is true.
Gentle.
Right, that is the word that you
Gentle.
said.
But it's done in love.
It doesn't say that here, though. It
Gentle.
It says, restore such a person with a gentle spirit.
Okay, like you said,
Nothing
sometimes
else.
gentle just doesn't work.
I
You
mean,
can
I feel
start
it.
that way,
It's
and
okay.
then eventually.
It's like, okay, I've been doing this for so many
Yeah.
times. Eventually, it's like, okay, I gotta change gears.
Well, and I'm not a sugar
You're not
coater
getting it.
either.
Yeah,
And I don't
Yeah.
like sugarcoating. I'd rather you just tell it like it is.
I think that's why you accept mine.
That is exactly why I accept it. You sugarcoat
no
it.
bull
like,
crap. No,
Okay.
no crap. None of the sugary stuff.
Well, we have gone way over our 30 minutes.
That's fine.
Yeah, one more thing. I was reading 1
Oh, yes.
Thessalonians 5:11.
Oh, Mercedes is still reading.
Sorry, it just
Can I
it
have-
Oh
happens.
yeah, sorry.
Where's 11? There's 10.
5:11.
There's 11.
I was gonna say,
11.
it's another
It's like,
one of
is
these.
another verse that I got wrong?
Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up as you are already doing. But then you come down to 14. And we exhort you, brothers, warn those who are irresponsible, comfort the discouraged, help the weak, be patient with everyone.
Ooh, that's good.
Be patient
Truth.
with
Be
everyone.
patient with everyone. And that
On
that
that
ties
note,
into
That's a tough one.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
How long do I have
Which
to
is
be
also a
patient?
fruit of the spirit, patience.
God, shut up, Mercedes.
That's what I It's hard to be patient.
Well,
This is
okay.
good.
I hope that all of y'all out there have enjoyed tonight as much as I have.
Peanuts gallery.
I love meeting with the younger generation. They
We could be her daughters.
that
Wesley's
makes me feel
27.
good.
All three of us.
Yeah.
That makes me feel better.
I don't think that made her feel any better. Gentle, Anna.
I don't.
thanks you guys.
We're about to get hit with flip-flops.
This has been a wow moment.
Thanks, Anna.